Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Van Buren Variety Show. Glad you're here. And also want to say a shout out to our new watchers who are tuning in tonight. So whether you've been here before or this is your first time, welcome here. A little bit about the show, in case you don't know. It's called Van Buren Variety, and it's variety for a reason. We talk about anything and everything on this show. We have a different guest every week. It could be their interesting profession or their hobby, a how-to segment. They might even play some music instruments, so you never know what you're going to get. So if you are new here and you like what you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button because every little bit counts, and then that way you'll get future updates and future information about future guests that's going to be on the show. So, and also, if you like this episode, don't just watch it and pass it by. There's a like button there, so make sure you hit that like button. So, and our guests would certainly like to see that you've watched it and appreciated it as well. So, welcome to this is actually episode 64 of the show. So, I appreciate all my loyal fans and the new people that's here. So, again, it's really, really heartfelt. Thank you very much. Hope you've all had a great week so far. I've had some ups and downs this week, but a lot of you that have been keeping track of this show have been asking me about my mother cat. As you know, from several weeks ago, she had kittens, and not just a few. Count them. She had 7 kittens, yes. So they were weaned about a couple of weeks ago, and as of this week, actually today as a matter of fact, the last kitten went to her adopted home. So I am kitten free. The mama cat is by herself. She has an appointment next week with a veterinarian. Guess what that appointment's about? Yeah, no more kittens here. So y'all might have missed this a few weeks ago. This was the last picture I took of them before some of them got their new homes. So here is Mama Cat eating, and then there is 7 of her babies that were also eating. So yeah, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 3 of them went to the same home. 2 of them went to the same home, and then the others went to separate homes. But luckily, they've all got homes. They're all happy. They will all be inside cats, as my mother cat will be on the left side of the screen. So there's your update. Everybody wanted to know what was going on, and so there it is. But I'm kitten free now. So let me do the Bob Barker thing. Make sure you get your animals spayed or neutered. Okay, there it is. Don't learn from my mistake. Again, we've had a great week. It's been a kind of a rocky roller coaster on sometimes, but hey, we all got through it, right? I'm going to intrigue you with tonight's subject before I bring my guest on. And it's something that you better want to pay attention to. Can you think about it? Do you think that you can buy a house for the price of a car? A lot of you are probably going, no. I'm talking about, and not just rundown property. I'm talking about very nice homes. Now, I'm not talking about the $100 million mansions that you see in Hollywood. Possibly, if you build yourself up that way. It could be an apartment complex. It could be anything. In fact, here's an example. It can be a very older but modest home like this. You might want to live in a home like this. You might want to use it as rental property to other people. You might want to fix it up and resell. Hey, the possibilities are endless. So again, we're going to hear about real estate and how you can own your own property. Because if you're renting, it's true. You don't get anything out of rent receipts. Once that check is gone, your landlord's got it. So let me quit talking and bring my great guest on tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Pam Hill, and she's going to intrigue you, as I'm already intrigued, by buying a house for the price of a car. So, Miss Hill, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Thank you so much, Bob. Feel free to call me Pam. I'm just delighted to be here. It's such an important subject. It's something near and dear to my heart because I really do feel like everybody can and should they so desire, they should own their own slice of this American dream through a house.
Absolutely. So let's just jump into it. I'm sure my audience is hanging on with bated breath right now. So what would be your suggestion, or how does one start to buy a house for the price of a car? I'm intrigued too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm here in Pennsylvania near Philly.
Okay.
And so I mention that only because I know some folks might think, well, gee, maybe you live in a part of the United States that's extremely low priced, and I don't. I live in the Northeast, which can be and is expensive. And I got
Competitive.
started in this maybe about 10 years ago
Hmm.
during the Great Recession. But that said, there are still opportunities even today. So when I got started, my husband at the time we were dating, but he was looking for a house. He lived in an apartment. He was looking for a house, and he was looking in Wilmington, Delaware.
Hmm.
And we were stunned to see that houses were selling for the mid 20s.
Oh, wow.
23,000, 25,000, 27,000. And
Man.
these were row houses, not standalone single family, but
Hmm.
nonetheless on a good block with hardworking
Sure.
folks.
Hmm.
And so that's what he ended up doing. He bought a house, I think it was 26,000 or thereabouts, a three-bedroom, one and a half bath.
Nice.
And we were fortunate to have a real estate agent who told us about, at that point, it was Fannie Mae. So that's the first
Yeah.
nugget we dropped.
Hmm.
Is that's where we found the house, and Fannie Mae's website doesn't even sound like a federal government website. It's called Home Path, so
Hmm.
HOME Path, P like Peter, A Apple, T Thomas, H Henry.com. So it's that .com that makes you wonder, is that really the government or is that just, one of these shams that out there? But no, this is
Uh-huh.
a real federal government agency site.
Put that up. Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
it, and what's so
Hmm.
valuable about Home Path, just that's only but one example. What's so valuable about that for someone who's looking to buy a house that they themselves can live in is that Fannie Mae gives, almost like, first dibs for the first 20 days or so. So, that means that if you're looking to be a resident, wherever, I mean, we looked in Wilmington, but anywhere in the United States, if you're looking to be a resident of the home, then people like me, investors, cannot compete against you. Only other potential homeowners can look at that house and submit a bid for the first 20 days. And Fannie Mae tends to work real hard to try to get residents in those homes.
That is awesome. Because I repeat, I mean, sometimes I know people have to rent, and I
Yep,
understand that. But you get so much more freedom when you own your home. And
absolutely.
so because when you write a check, you're giving it to the landlord. He or she does what they want. So it's nothing like home ownership.
Absolutely. Yeah, home ownership, especially these days. Home ownership always was valuable in, just as you mentioned, in terms of the ability to enjoy the appreciation on the home as the economy gets better and the neighborhood goes up in value. So you always had that. But something that's new, meaning over the past 10 years, is the ability to rent your home, not just conventionally like a 12-month lease, but unusually so through short-term rentals,
Hmm.
even with you living in the house. So there are some folks who know they're going to be on vacation for a week and they say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and put my house or maybe just a room in the house on Airbnb or one of these other sites.
I've heard of
Uh,
that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
yep. So there's a way to really turn your home into a rental property and kind of get your feet wet as a landlord, even with your own home, sweet home.
That is great. So how long have you been doing this, Pam?
So I got started, I think it was round about 2011, 2012.
Okay.
And the first house that I bought was in Wilmington. And since then, I've bought 25 houses across 3 states, in
Wow.
Delaware,
Huh.
so that's Wilmington, in New Jersey, so southeast New Jersey, and in Pennsylvania, so southeast PA. In other words, kind of near the
Sure.
Philadelphia area. And that's 31 units. And my cheapest one was what I call the price of a bicycle. It was 2,500, and the most expensive
Wow.
35,000. And I mean, these are real houses. In other words, it's not like a down payment. Like, hey, Pam, you must be saying you can put a down payment of 35,000. No, it's the entirety of the house. They none of them are manufactured housing. There's nothing wrong with that, but just so folks know that I don't mean that either, because I know that requires
Hmm.
the payment of a lot, rental fee. And when I say that they're still available, so about 6 years ago, my husband and I, we bought our home. So we moved out of Wilmington and then moved in together into a home right here in near Southeast Philly. And we paid $35,000 for that house. So we eat our own cooking
Oh,
when it comes to
wow.
it. And on any given day, you can go on, let's say, Zillow or any of its competitors,
Hmm.
Trulia, what have you. And that's just one channel where you can find these houses. But you can find houses, probably as many as 500, I'd say, on any
Oh,
given
wow.
day that are in that, what I call the price of a car these days. I guess I'd have to say as much as 55 or
Yeah,
60,000.
sure. Hmm.
Um, and probably not less than 20,000. And in that range, what I do is I then look for houses that aren't tumble downs. In other words, not a house that's really ready to meet its maker through a wrecking ball,
Sure.
but
Hmm.
instead might need maybe 15,000 or so dollars worth of work. Most of that is going to be on at least one expensive item. So the one expensive item might be a furnace, that you've got to replace a furnace,
That's true.
or it might be a lot of repairs needed to the roof.
A roof. So say a
Or
roof. That's the first thing I thought of.
exactly. Those are the 2. But that's it. In other words, it won't fit my criteria if it needs a new roof and a new furnace, and it has central air, and it needs a new compressor, an evaporator, and it needs a new hot water heater. It can't need the works. It's gotta be just the
Sure.
one, plus the ability to then fix up the rest. Maybe fix up means, gee,
Hmm.
there are holes in the wall. Well, that means drywall. Gee, the floors are in bad shape. No, we don't need all new, brand new beams, but just new flooring, carpet,
Sure.
vinyl flooring, that sort of thing. So that's how you get to the $15,000 number. So if you've bought a house, let's say for 40, and you've put 15 into it, so now the actual price is 55,000. Rents these days, let's say in a neighborhood that is a
Hmm.
$55,000 house neighborhood, those rents are probably going to be maybe about 1,200, even
Hmm.
higher. But let's just say 1,200 for a 3 bedroom. So now you're talking a 4 year break even, 4 or 5 year break even, and thereafter it's just cream.
That's awesome.
And
So
and that's
you're
if you look at it as an investor.
so you're in the, like I should say, the Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey area there.
That's it,
Is it
exactly.
pretty? Do you see that as being a very competitive market? What I mean by that is, I'm in Texas, but
Yep.
it's very competitive right down here, and we've seen houses go up. So, but is it competitive in the Northeast as well in your
It is
research?
competitive here. So, we have folks who come from New York, and even though New York City is not terribly far, it's about 120 miles or so. Still, that's a distance for somebody to get in their car and drive. But to your point that how Texas is maybe not that far away from California
Mhm.
in terms of attracting money, same thing because of course California is so expensive, so Texas is going to seem cheap by comparison.
Sure.
So same thing for a New York City investor looking here, we're going to seem cheap by comparison. So yes, they will come. But I think that the advantage when you live in the area is that you're already comfortable at a block by block level because that's really the key. Just the same way that, the old saying, all politics is local, not global. It's kind of the
Hmm.
same thing with real estate. It is a block by block transaction, meaning some blocks are good blocks, some blocks are bad blocks. So you can't just say, oh, Dallas is great or oh, Dallas is terrible. It really is where. And that's where you're going to be stronger than anybody who comes from out of town competing against you.
That's great advice. Well, let me ask you this then. In your experience, what do you think, in your experience that you've had, are the most pressing challenges and solutions to affordable housing?
Yes, such a great question. So I'll answer it, I guess, through two lenses around pressing challenges with affordable housing. First, I'll put my investor hat on, since I know that may be what some folks wonder from an investor perspective.
Sure.
What are the challenges of buying the area of or the type of housing I buy, which really is the affordable housing market? And then next, I'll put on my maybe my hat of looking at it as if I were a renter. What are the
Okay.
challenges of affordable housing
Okay.
from that lens?
Perfect.
Okay, so now first the investor side. So I'd say the biggest challenge for an investor is going to be um, financing. So the financing will be available for sure from hard money lenders. What won't be available, easily available, is, let's say, your conventional bank. Bank of America, Citibank, what have you.
The big
When
banks. Yeah.
the
Uh huh.
big banks. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why is a big bank, or for that matter, even just your local credit union, when you come to them full of excitement that you have found your dream home, or maybe it's not your dream home, but darn it, it's where you're going to start.
Mm-hmm.
And it's $50,000 and you've got 5,000 or 10,000. So all you need is 40,000. Sadly, they're not going to be jumping up and down. And the reason is it's a whole lot easier for them, or else the same amount of work for them to make a loan to you that's 250,000 as it is 50,000. But they're going to make a
Mm-hmm.
lot less money on a $50,000 loan.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
They have to do so many of those to make the same amount of money. So that's going to be your challenge. You'll have to go, if you don't have cash, to just buy it all in one go. And I have advised clients who've done that, not because they had cash just sitting in their bank, but they tapped into credit cards. I am not comfortable doing that because I tend to be risk averse that way, but
Mm-hmm.
some folks are, and it has worked out for them. So that's going to be your challenge of the affordable housing market
Okay.
as an investor, the financing. But if you can get that put to bed, you're going to be in good company in finding this to be a profitable route. So now let's turn the hat around, turn the cowboy hat around,
Okay.
and think
Yeah.
about it from a renter's perspective with affordable housing. The challenge is there's not enough of it. There is not enough affordable housing.
I
Um,
agree. Completely
yeah,
agree.
there just isn't, and it's a real problem that, certainly COVID maybe brought to light a lot of problems that are
Yeah.
going on in the
They did.
country, with
Mm-hmm.
this just being one of them, and so we just have to hope that, the government, and it's not just the federal government, state, county, municipal, there's room for everybody under this big tent, to do something about it, because, just as we treat education as, a right, and I think it is a right to be certainly educated in this country. We don't say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, you 6 year old, you better get out and work in the fields first, and earn yourself some little money, and then you can go ahead and
Yeah.
pay your teacher."
Have a
No,
good
we
life. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so it should be the same with housing, but we'll just have to see. So that's the big challenge. And as a result, what I do as an investor is not just live in the lane of investor and landlord. I also step into that policy lane by advocating for tenants' rights. And so I think it's something that everyone who is a landlord should do.
Excellent advice. Absolutely. I want to ask you this. I know we talked about the challenges and about the affordable housing, but let's talk about you.
Yes.
Before you got into this investing in real estate, how did you make the transition from the corporate world to being such a great entrepreneur?
That's an excellent question.
Did you
And
leave a
for
good
me,
job to do what you're doing full time?
I did, but
Wow.
you know what? What's so fascinating about this is, there's this new term of art called a side hustle or a gig. When I was growing up, they just called it second job or what have
Yeah,
you.
me too.
Um, but so it's new words, but it's the same concept. And so initially, I started out just wearing two hats or really three because I was, my kids were younger then. But the two hats, of course, were working, and then also doing this so-called side hustle with looking at investment properties, and
Uh-huh.
I did it because I wanted um, I wanted to see how I could add to my retirement income. I guess I thought about it through that lens initially. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that Social Security seems to always be right at the brink
It
of
is. It
death,
absolutely is. Mm-hmm.
and who knows if it'll be there when it comes time for me
Yeah.
to grab
Mm-hmm.
onto it. And you got a 401k if you're fortunate, but the stock market could go up one day, down the next. So I figured I needed to have
Mm-hmm.
another source of income that didn't seem quite so vulnerable. And from what I can see, they're not making any more land. So housing seemed like something that I might be able to hang on to. And I didn't want to start off trying to buy, let's say, a three or 400,000 house. For one, I didn't have the money for that. So I thought, well, where can I get in that's at a real, just a beginner level?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where this house for a price of a car level really came in. And to your question around how was it to balance the two hats, what I would say to anybody who is like me, which is, they were working or still are working, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're looking at this other thing is, whatever entrepreneurial thing they're looking at, I would say use your work experience and everything available to you at work. And when you're off work, rethink it and think about how you can use it in your business. So as an example, I don't know if you maybe your job is having to come up with new safety procedures, and so it seems like, well, that's pretty standard, pretty boring. How am I going to make use of that? So when you get
Mm-hmm.
off work, now think about how your entrepreneurial venture faces risks. What are those risks, and what can you do to mitigate them? Maybe from physical safety for your customers or for your employees or something. So
Mm-hmm.
always be searching for the meat that you can bring to another opportunity.
Well, was that a difficult decision for you? I mean, when your entrepreneurship, when your real estate was really taking off, but
Yes.
was it, did you have any hesitancy or was there no problem at all to walk away from corporate America?
That's a great question too, because you're right. I just got finished saying that I'm a person who does not love risk, so I'm clearly not going to just say I've had it, Mister. I'm out of here. So it was something where I had to feel like that I had enough bases covered in doing this work, and moreover that I needed to have the range, the almost like the broader shoulders to do more. That I couldn't just like do my 8 or 10 or 12 hours during the day of corporate work and then say, well, sleep. I guess I'll sleep when I'm dead. No, that's easy to say. That's not easy to do. You do need sleep, and you can't just sort of carve out only 3 or 4 hours at night, night after
Sure,
night after
absolutely.
night after night. So once I felt like that I did have enough of a stability, then I went on ahead to make the transition.
So, yeah, and like I say, everyone, me included, I'm in corporate America too. So, the thought of quitting this job, like, oh no, I know I have a job here, then now I'm my own boss. I'm sure there was probably a little bit of hesitancy on when you were thinking
Yes,
about that.
yes, yes, absolutely. The last time that I did something where it was kind of a standalone business, I opened a tax preparation office. So with
Oh,
one of these
okay.
major franchisors, oh gosh, that was probably 15 years ago. So that was the last time that I had done something where I felt like I was really wearing my boss hat, and I certainly was shaking in my boots because I was used to being in the corporate world, and it was something that I did kind of on an interim basis. But there's also something really um, gratifying about doing this. And I'd have to say, to be honest, it's easier to do now that I'm older, in part because I just don't have, I mentioned earlier, children. So, that's a lot of
Yeah,
responsibility that you
sure,
wear on your
absolutely.
shoulders when you've got young children. And once they're kind of grown and out of the house, then it's really just you and your loved one, your husband or whoever you have there, and so there's less at risk. So that's another component. But I think each person has to think about their own temperament and whether it's right for them or not.
Okay. Well, we got a comment earlier. We were talking earlier about the competitiveness, even where you are, where Texas is. We have a comment from the audience, and see if you can kind of have some advice for this person. I'll show it up on the screen. Sandra Piper is saying homes for sale in Central Florida are outrageous. Big corporations are buying up homes. Have you seen that? And then,
I
of course, the
have.
second question is, what does one do if they want to invest in real estate when they're up against a big corporation?
I have. I feel you on that, Sandra. I was looking at a house about a year ago that I was going to buy because it was right next door to a house that I already owned, a rental house, and there was like a foreclosure notice that was right on the window pane
Mm.
of the vacant house. And I called and I called. It was a great big bank that owned it, and nobody ever got back to me. And then finally, I find out that it has already been sold to
Mm.
another big bank, not just that one house, but a good 50, all in
Oh,
one great
50.
big bundle.
Oh,
Yes. So it can be difficult. And I think really that when it comes to corporations buying up homes only to then sell them at a much higher profit, this is where, just lobbying your legislators, sometimes they can do things at a small level, like at your township level, that wouldn't be considered at the state level or at the federal government level. Um, and also, second thing I'd say is just stay persistent in looking for something. I don't know the Central Florida area, so that's the very first thing I have to confess. But stay persistent in looking because you might be able to find something that is just outside of their radar.
and plus, you mentioned something earlier. You used Dallas as an example. Maybe, look at certain sections of Dallas, and maybe that'd
Yes,
be a good thing for Sandra, not just one area of Central Florida. Kind of
of
maybe
Central
look around.
Florida. Absolutely. I would agree completely. Another opportunity, if Sandra is looking for a house to buy as a resident, in other words, it's where she will live, but she also wants the opportunity for it to be an investment property, then what I would suggest is that she buy a small multifamily, small meaning
Okay.
two family, three family, four family. And the reason why is that FHA, so that's the Federal Home
Mm-hmm.
Administration, as well as I mentioned Fannie Mae, even the U.S. Department of Agriculture, if she's got a connection to a veteran, the Veterans Administration, all of those agencies will essentially guarantee for the bank uh,
Okay.
your payment on the house, on the multifamily house. So, for instance, if you're a vet, you can buy a multifamily with no money down.
Oh,
$0,
great. All right.
$0,
Mm.
and a very low interest rate. If you're not a vet, you're just a regular old garden variety American, and you're ready to buy a house. In the case of FHA, if your FICO score, your credit score, is at least 620, pardon me, not 620, 580, 580.
580.
If
Okay.
it's at least 580, then you can put down 3%. If it's not
Mm.
580, instead it's 579 and all the way down to 500, but at least 500 up to
Mm-hmm.
579, you can still get a house with FHA, but it's a 10% down
10%,
payment.
10% of the price of the house, whatever
10%
that
of the
may be.
price of the house. So just think about that. A four-family house, well, with that, you're only going to live in one of those families. So that means
Sure.
automatically the other three are paying your mortgage. So that's what I would do.
Sandra, I hope that answers your question. Actually, she did comment. Like I said, I'm not familiar with Florida either, Pam, but she wrote, finally had to go from Lakeland, Florida to Winter Haven, Florida. Well, maybe Winter Haven was better. I hope it's better there, Sandra.
Exactly, exactly. And if you did, Sandra, have to go to Winter Haven, let's say from an investment perspective, well, then that's what I recommend as well. So let's pretend that I didn't live out here in Philly, that instead I lived in expensive California, where
Hmm.
the average price of a house in California is in the mid 600s. That's the
At
average
least.
price.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
Wow.
you're not going to find anything, for under 100. But if you want to be an investor, don't do it in California. It's as simple as that. Uh,
Hmm.
find a state where you first are going to interview potential property managers, because obviously you're going to need a property manager when you're not living right there, and then buy properties that way, allowing somebody else, paying them 10%. That's the going rate for what you pay a property manager. And then they stand in the gap. They find your tenants, they collect the rent, they deal with the contractors, and so on.
Now, what did you say? And I heard you say it, but the property management company, it's like say that I buy a property and I hire a property management company. What do they charge? Do
They
they?
normally charge two fees. The
Okay.
very first fee is the fee to find a renter, and that
Finder's fee, basically.
a finder's fee,
Okay.
and that equals normally 1 month's rent. So
Okay.
if you're renting out, I don't know, a 3 bedroom in, I don't know, somewhere in, let's say we were just talking Florida, so let's say out there in Pensacola, Florida, or something like that.
Okay.
So maybe you're renting a 3 bedroom for 1,200 a month. Well, then that very first month's rent, that's gonna go to the property management
Property
company.
management
That's the
company.
first
Okay, I
fee,
see
but
that.
they're
Okay.
not gonna keep months 2, 3, 4, just only that first month.
Okay.
Then so that was to get the tenant. Okay, so now the tenant is there, and of course, the tenant needs somebody to call when there's a problem. That fee for the maintenance, the marketing, all of that, that is anywhere from as low as 6%. It's gonna be hard to find 6%, and if you do, you really wanna interview and make sure this is
Sure.
going to be a good property management company, but as low as 6% and maybe as high as about 12, 13%, and the average tends to be right down the middle at 10%. Now, this is for a standard rental, not an
Okay.
Airbnb, a
Okay.
standard
Gotcha.
rental. So that's what you're gonna pay, and again, using our example of $1,200, then that's $120 a month. So some people may say,
Okay.
"Well, gee, I don't want to pay anything." But I say think of it this way, you're gonna pay one way or the other. So either you're paying with your own time, let's pretend that you lived in Pensacola, so you're paying with your own time of working with your tenant, responding, finding contractors and handymen to fix whatever the problem is,
Mm-hmm.
pricing things out as best you can,
Sure.
or you're paying somebody else. And so I don't know, if you only got 1 or 2 properties or more, then you need to think, seriously about whether you even want to start off, with you wearing that hat. For me personally, I used a property manager for probably my first 5 properties. I
Mm-hmm.
figured that was, almost like tuition that I was paying. So I was paying for school for somebody else who was already an expert. I saw him just like a professor to teach me, what are all the questions you ask? How do you determine if it's going to be a good renter? What are the maintenance issues? How do you respond to those? And then afterwards, for me to go ahead and say, okay, Pam, let's give this a shot. You can always go back to them if you need to.
Sure. Well, let me ask you, Pam, in your experience, you talked about how you've invested in residential properties. Kind of a two-part question. Have you ever invested in business properties, or and if not, will you ever consider investing like in commercial properties?
Great question. So the only business property that I've invested in is a four-family building. So it's a small building.
Okay.
Building makes it sound big. It's got 4 apartments, and then on the first floor, it's got like a bar restaurant. So
Okay.
that's the only one that I purchased. like that. But as far as the future, yes, I will certainly consider commercial. I have to say, my heart does kind of lie with residential.
Hmm.
Back to what we talked about earlier with the need for affordable housing. But if I do see something that makes sense, I would look at it. I'd say a question that's certainly a reasonable one is if I've had any challenges, even any losers along the way. And the fact is, I have. It's kind of not fair to talk about a topic like this and make it seem like it's all roses and not talk about the thorns.
The
Because
hardships,
anything,
yes.
you,
Uh-huh.
you got to, you got to be honest on both ends of it. And so I'd say a couple of areas. One is that this was farther down in my buying experience. I participated in an auction, and with auctions, the thing about them is that you're not allowed to go inside and take a look around.
You're not?
So
Oh, well, wow.
no,
Oh,
like a
wow.
county auction, if the county is selling off a
Hmm.
property or a bunch of properties, let's say because they taxes erode, and so the
Okay.
county just is wanting to get rid of these, they don't allow you to go in because it could be hundreds of bidders that are looking at the property. So they just say it's sight unseen. You can drive
Buyer beware, basically.
buyer beware. You can
Oh,
walk
wow.
around the
Ooh.
outside, maybe try to put your eyeball against the window to see what you can see.
See what you're getting yourself into.
That's right, but that's about it. So, I bought, uh, properties that way, and a couple turned out just fine. They were real good properties, but a couple were terrible. One of them, you know how a house is supposed to have 4 sides? Well, this one only had 3. So it
Three
had
sides.
the front and the 2, but then when you walk around back, there's the kitchen. How do you know? Because you can look right in and see it. So that was
Oh,
a loser.
no.
And then another one looked, it had all 4 sides, but the roof was kind of only half of a roof. So, these are the things I tell people. A, I should never have done that, right? I've always said, don't go into a buyer beware situation. But it seemed I had walked around as best I could, and I said, well, it looks pretty good. And so I got burned. So I tell people who are starting, don't start in the riskiest markets,
Okay.
and
Good
auctions
advice.
are risky. Start in the safer markets, like again, a Zillow or something where you can walk right inside, you could take your time, or like Fannie Mae that I mentioned earlier, they
Hmm.
let you right on in the house. So that's one. And then two, as far as other hardships or challenges, sometimes you do have a renter that does not work out. And
That
so
happens. Yeah.
that
Hmm.
happens. I have had to take folks to court. I try to work it out always beforehand, but if I can't, then we go to court. And so that's never a pleasant
Sure.
experience. Some folks may wonder, well, doesn't your house get all torn up? I've had a house where, yes, there it was filthy
Oh,
by the
no.
time the person
Ouch.
moved out, but that's all it was, right? It wasn't burnt down to the ground, it wasn't flooded, it just was dirty, and had some holes in the wall. So, that is not a tremendous thing when you think about it. So, I would say know your temperament. If you're the kind of person that you already know about yourself, that you don't like it when, I don't know, somebody comes in your house and maybe they made a mistake and spilled something on the carpet or something, and you're going to get bent out of shape about things like that, then being a landlord may not be for you because
Hmm.
um, you don't want to tie your heart up in this and feel like, oh, they hurt my property. At the end of the day, that's all it is a
Hmm.
property. It's not like they hurt your child, and you can fix it right back up.
You talked about the buyer beware starting out. That's very good advice because when you
Hmm.
were talking, it reminded me of a story. I had a friend who was like a building manager, and it wasn't him this happened to, but they were having an auction, and what happened? This was a repossession, and
Mm,
it was a nice house from the outside. They auctioned it off. What they didn't know when the new buyer came in, before the new people, the old people that got evicted left. They took a sledgehammer. I mean, literally, they tore this house up. There were holes in the walls. They ripped doors off hinges. They even took the bathtub out. What would you do with an old bathtub? But the kitchen cabinets and like the microwave, it was glass just busted in. But they didn't,
That's
the
right.
person that bought it, it was again, buyer beware. They couldn't see the inside of it. So I'm sure you've heard of horror stories like that.
Absolutely. I saw a house like that early on when I
Really?
was very first looking. I was looking in New Jersey and I hadn't bought anything there yet. And I saw a house just as you described it, where it must have been a terrible eviction process or foreclosure process. Somebody's feelings were hurt, something terrible. Because just like you said, they took a sledgehammer to all the walls, each and every one of them. So
Wow.
yeah, it does happen. I'd say for me, I kind of have a different perspective on what damage looks like. So not that holes in a wall aren't damaged, but after spending enough time at Home Depot or Lowe's or what have you, and looking at sheetrock, or drywall, I know that that's just really all it is. Again, if they didn't actually somehow damage the structural integrity of the house or pull out all the wiring, including the electric panel box, or pull out every pipe that there was, or take a sledgehammer to the furnace. Usually, the kinds of things that are damaged, like holes in a wall or
Hmm.
doors off a hinge, it looks terrible, but it's not near as costly as is a roof issue, not by a long
Absolutely.
shot.
But now you actually train. You have courses that you can train other people. Let me bring that up to our conversation here.
Absolutely,
This is your
absolutely.
website,
Yes, it is.
mysmartcousin.com. So let's talk about the title. How did you come up with My Smart Cousin? Are you the smart cousin?
I am the smart cousin in my family who always smart in terms of who is always following up with family on, financial topics. So if you tell me at a family reunion, that you were thinking about investing in your 401k or you're looking at getting around to, buying your first home, I'm gonna follow up with you at that family reunion, at the next and the next. And I'm not just gonna pester you, I'm gonna help you. I'm going to call you and we're going to brainstorm and that sort of thing. So that's how this name for my company really got started. And so I became not just the smart cousin to my family, but to friends and now to
Great.
clients. It's just really a gratifying thing for me to do to help folks figure out how it is that they can, like I say, get a piece of this American pie through a house. And so I offer courses as well as one-on-one coaching with folks, and the one-on-one coaching could be anything from a 3 hour, almost like a fireside chat where we spend time on all the issues that you have. You just tell them to me, we're going to lay them all out, and you're going to walk away with a plan. Or it could be, let's say 3 months of just hand holding all the way straight through to the finish line.
That's great. And also on your website, when I went there, I noticed that you've written a book. It's called
Yes.
Buy Your First Investment Property. Is this something that they can find this on the website as
Yes, they
well?
can. It's a free ebook.
A free
Along
ebook.
free, the magic word free. Along with, I have a lot of blog posts, so articles, in other words, that are on there, as well as videos, and just a lot of training. So I really do encourage folks who are thinking about buying a property, even if they never take my class or anybody's class. There's a lot of information that's out there. What can sometimes be in short supply for folks is motivation.
Hmm.
Um, and for that matter, collaboration. So even though there's a lot that's free, I do recommend that you find yourself somebody who you are comfortable with, who will work with you and hold you accountable, or you'll just honestly find yourself a year from now in the very same place you're sitting today.
On your website here, is there a way that people maybe can contact you or get in touch with
Yes,
you or
they
send you a
can.
message? Okay,
Yes, they can. On the website, they'll see that what they can do is email me. So that's one way by just going into their email and writing info, short for information. So info
perfect.
at mysmartcousin.com. And of course, for people who like social media, and so maybe they like to go on Twitter or they like to go on Instagram, they can contact me with a direct message that way, a DM, and that my handles are at my smart cousin. And of course, my cousin is all one long stream. So at
Hmm.
like that little at ampersand
Sure.
uh,
Uh-huh.
or at symbol, and then my smart cousin.
Well, let me ask you this: when you got into this, one of the most intriguing. I mean, you're obviously a success story on this, and that gives people, I'm sure, watching this, me included, encouragement. How did you start making like a six? If I can ask you, a six-figure
Yeah,
income, what you
that's right.
called earlier a side hustle.
Yes.
How did you reach
So
that
how
goal?
Yes, so how I got started with that, how it turned into 6 figures, I would say it was really just house by house by house. So, what
Building
I
your way up.
exactly,
Hmm.
it took time. So I started 10 years ago, but it's not like in month 10 of year 1, there I was. I had to be willing to be patient, and take my time. Sometimes I had to work with family to get them to help me out with fixing up a house. Certainly, my husband has been wonderful on the fixing up side. Me myself, I've done overalls in the beginning with painting and doing that sort of thing. And so that's part one is the turnaround of the house once you buy it, and then part two is trying to be a good long-term partner with the person who rents the house, and really putting on your customer service hat. I find that some folks who are in this business, maybe it's because the word landlord sort of sounds a little high and mighty, and the word tenant, makes landlords feel like, well, they're just a little man, and so they don't
Hmm.
really view the person who's renting the house as a customer. But I think you've got to. And so you've got to worry about how your customer is doing. So, to me, that means if someone who's renting a house mentions to me that they're thinking about a college class or something, then I go ahead and do a little research and I send them what I find out about it. And that way you build yourself some goodwill, and somebody who will take you at your face value if you ask them for a day or two to find a solution to an issue that they have with the house.
In your experience, have you found that you get more residual income from a rental property where someone's paying you a monthly rent, or do you find it more financially satisfaction from buying a property, fixing it up, and then selling it for a much higher price? Where do you see the
Yep.
better investment?
So for me, I have only done buy, hold, rent. I have not sold anything yet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And the reason why is when you mentioned the affordable income segment that I'm in, that segment tends not to have a dramatic increase in appreciation values for,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, maybe 10 years or 15 years, unless
Mm-hmm.
some crazy thing happens where, for whatever reason, there's gentrification or some other thing
Mm-hmm.
that suddenly causes that neighborhood to catch fire, and now everybody wants to be there.
Everybody's grabbing
Um,
it now. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But if you buy a house for, I don't know, 40,000, okay, yes, that house is probably worth 150,000 now. But that's not it's a big increase percentage-wise, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
three times or four times, but it's not a big increase in absolute dollars. So to me, you're better off holding on to that house, collecting the rent, and who knows, maybe in 5 years, it another 5 or 10 years, it will be a lottery ticket that'll pay off
Depends
for
on the
you.
market, of course. You
Just
know.
depends on the market.
Well, and you know what? What you just said about the property maybe increasing in value.
Mhm.
Show you a comment from the audience.
Mm.
Randy Gilbert says, "My house I bought at a great price, and now is valued at more than double what I bought it at. Have you had that happen to you, Pam?
Absolutely. And that, I'd say every one of the houses that I own, because I bought them at such a low, low price, they all are at least double, and often triple or quadruple. But again, in absolute terms, that means that they went from 30 or 40,000 to now 150, 170,000. So yes, that's definitely a good appreciation. But for me, it's not enough motivation to sell unless, in selling, that I then use the proceeds of, let's say, one house, selling it at 170. If I could then take that and turn it into a four or a five family.
Oh, so building up. Yeah.
Exactly, scaling up. Then that makes sense, and that's something I'll look at. But if you just sell it to buy another, single family, um, that'll be would be a harder, reason for me to sell.
So, you talked about you're in the what, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area.
That's
Are
right.
there other areas, specifically the USA, that you've heard or that
Yes.
whether Pacific Northwest, Southeast, wherever, that's pretty, I guess you could say, a pretty hot housing market right now?
Absolutely. So I'd say as far as house for the price of a car numbers, where you should go, or where you should certainly look, are the 3 states that I'm in, and then add to that the state of New York,
New
not New
York.
York City, not
Okay, of
New
course,
York
not
City,
that one. Yeah.
not the city, but the state of New York,
State of New
like
York.
upstate New York, like, Buffalo, Albany, Schenectady,
Hmm.
Rochester,
Yeah.
further up. Those are gonna be priced at, car prices. Same thing with a lot of Ohio, a lot of
Okay.
Michigan,
Okay.
um, some of Maryland, like Baltimore, you're
Oh,
gonna
okay.
find some of these prices still. Um, some of the Southeast still. Atlanta has gotten to be pricey, but not all of Georgia has gone the way that
Hmm.
Atlanta has. Um, some parts of Alabama are pretty high, like Huntsville is expensive, but
Hmm.
not all of Alabama. Mississippi is still going to be okay. Louisiana's going to be okay. So there's a lot. I would say most of the U.S. What's going to be off the table altogether is California, Alaska, Hawaii,
Hmm.
um,
New York
Texas.
City.
Yep, New York City. Yep, as far as, states, Texas still is in the running. There's not a ton in Texas, but Texas is still in the running. Utah is gonna be tough. So generally, the western side of the US is
Hmm.
more expensive than the eastern side. So that's where I would look.
And so I tell my audience too, kind of, well, I had the thought we were talking about other states that are far away from me. I might just tell my audience, you can buy a property states away, but just as Pam said, hire a property management company.
That's it. That's it. Don't see that as a deal breaker, like, "Oh, that's too far. How am I gonna manage it?" By hiring a manager. There's plenty of people who live only a couple of miles from their investment property and still don't manage it. They never drive by it. They hire a property management company. And if folks need help, knowing how to find a qualified property management company, I certainly can do that too.
Might have asked you this earlier, but now do you handle your things yourself, or do you have a property management company, or does you do a
No, so
mixture of
we
both?
handle it ourselves. Well, we don't have a
Yourselves, okay.
property management company. Yep, we just do it ourselves. Because at this point, given the volume of houses, even though it's not like we got thousands or anything like that, but it's still enough that it makes more sense as far as costs to bring it in, under us, as opposed to paying somebody the 10% and 10% and 10% and so on.
Sure.
Because by now we kind of do know, what to do. And also, I just enjoy, um, getting on the phone with folks. Sometimes I got an issue, but sometimes they're just calling to tell me that, their son graduated high school or some other proud moment in their life.
Yeah, that's it. That's you're kind of a hands-on person then, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you can tell that.
We've always heard it said, if you want something done right, do it
That
yourself. So is that
that's
you?
it.
Is that?
Exactly. That's it. I do take a page out of that textbook. Yes.
Well, tell us about your education. Kind of how did
Sure.
you get? Did you what
Abs
kind of college or courses did you take to kind of prepare you or educate you for like this real estate
absolutely.
investment?
Absolutely. So for me, as far as the education for this real estate investment work, I'd say first it came from my real estate agents. So
Okay.
one of the very first things I would say to someone who's thinking about this
Yeah.
is to
Hmm.
find himself a good agent who is aligned with their objectives. In other words, be forthright and honest with your agent. Tell them, look, I'm only looking for houses that are going to be an investment property. Let's say that's what the route you're going, and that are priced at X dollar or less. Let's pretend that number is $60,000. And so
Okay.
you tell them, if you show me a house that costs $60,001, you're fired. I'm
Yeah.
talking hard 60. And the reason why you want to be that black and white with them is because some agents, just like I mentioned for a bank, they may feel like it's a waste of time to work with a small fry. Um, Same thing with some agents. Some agents love working with investors who are in the low end of the market because they know that's repeat business, that's not just a one and done deal.
Hmm.
So that's what you want to do is find an agent who is in that. Second, if your agent is already an investor, that's a good thing. Don't view it as competition because there's so many fish in the sea. It's not like
Well,
your
sure.
agent can buy
Absolutely.
1,000 houses. They can't. So don't view that as a problem. View that as an opportunity to pick their brain and learn what's been wonderful and terrible. And when they go in a house with you, ask them for their view of it. I'd say third, um, when you're brand new, you ought to go on ahead and hire an inspector before you consider putting a bid
The
into it.
idea. Yeah. Hmm.
And again, treat that as tuition. You're paying anyway. So
Sure.
don't just wait for the inspector to send you a report and you never even bother opening it. No, when the inspector says he's going there on Monday at 2 o'clock, you be there on Monday at 1:30. Walk in the property, write down all your questions, and tail after him like a little puppy, uh,
Good
asking
point.
him, why are you looking at this? Why are you looking at that? What does this mean? So you can learn.
Absolutely. Great advice. Well, Pam, it's been a great having you on the show, but I do want to, in case people have tuned in late, I want to put your website up there again, www.mysmartcousin, and she is the smart cousin, ladies and gentlemen. So that woman right here. So you have a family member right there that's going to
That's
help
it.
you make money and of all things, if
I
anything
will
else,
welcome you just like family.
and be your own boss, which is even better.
That's it.
And I'd
That's
like to
it.
also talk about your book too. Your book's called Buy Your First Investment Property. And you said it's a free ebook.
FREE free.
No strings attached, ladies and
No
gentlemen.
strings attached.
And people
Yep.
can call you or can I contact you through this
That's
website as well.
exactly right. Exactly right. Only thing I'm begging people to do is to take action. That's it. Take action on this one and only short life.
Absolutely. And of course, and again, you've got some courses out there that you
Yes, I
teach too,
do.
which are very valuable. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready to take charge of your life, and real estate's so hot right now, go to this website we got up there. It's www.mysmartcousin.com, and Pam will answer any questions that you have. And so, and then of course, read her great book too. I'm sure it's got a lot of great, valuable information in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has
Well,
been such a
Pam,
wonderful opportunity, Bob. I so appreciate it.
no problem. I'm glad to have you on the show. I mean, you've educated me a lot just as well as my audience. So I love what you're doing. It gives hope to all of us, that maybe want to take charge of our own lives. You said something earlier that, kind of a wake up call, probably for a lot of people. And I might just put a public service announcement. You cannot depend on Social Security. That could absolve, I mean, I don't want to say any day or scare people, but it may not be there later on. I mean, it's just, you risk a lot. So why don't you take the step into real estate? So there's my public service nets.
I agree. I just read an article in the paper where Social Security Agency said that the economy's stronger. So instead of them thinking that the Social Security fund is going to run out of money in 2036, now they're saying in 2037. Okay, so in 15 years, if something don't turn around, you're y-
It's still
you're out
around
of
the
money.
corner.
It's
Yeah.
around the corner, so don't just sit here waiting for that day to happen.
I fully agree, Pam. Well, Pam, thank you for being on the show tonight. We wish you the best in endeavors, and we hope you can come back, educate us again, and tell us
I
more
would
about
welcome it.
your
I
success
would
stories.
welcome it. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Pam. Have a great night.
Wonderful. You too.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for tonight. I know 1 hour seems like it goes like that, especially when we have an interesting topic like we did tonight. So, but I appreciate you all coming on. If you have any questions, make sure you leave some comments there. I'll make sure Pam gets that. And make sure you like this video. If you really did get a lot of information from Pam's presentation tonight, hit the like button. And more importantly, if you haven't subscribed yet to Van Buren Variety, that's Van Buren Variety, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and that way you'll get updates of future guests that's going to be on. I will be on next week with another guest with an interesting topic once again. And again, I appreciate you all, my subscribers, my audience, and I hope you all have a pleasant week. Good night, everybody.